Each game has its own atmosphere, gloomy or joyful, sometimes mixed and causing conflicting feelings. This video contains the most atmospheric games that amaze with the design of their environment, the sound range and other elements that form the gaming atmosphere. Silent Hill. One of the best survival horror games that frightens the player primarily with ingenious psychological tricks and a unique atmosphere. Although there are also classic horror tricks here, for example, monsters of incredible design, sharp disturbing sounds, gloomy locations that can change and become even more sinister at any moment, and so on. Manhunt, a single-player game from Rockstar Games, a dark and bloody stealth action game whose atmosphere and story is the perfect embodiment of the brutal horror subgenre like splatterpunk. The hero of Manhunt is James Earl Cash, convicted of murdering his family. Miraculously, the hero escapes the lethal injection to which he was sentenced, but instead finds himself a participant in a monstrous show in the form of a survival game, where he is being hunted by a gang of scumbags. Half-Life, the legendary sci-fi shooter, remembered for the atmospheric secret science and technology complex called Black Mesa, where the game takes place. Black Mesa is an incredibly huge scientific complex arranged right in the depths of the mountain. Once, during a dangerous experiment, scientists made a fatal mistake, as a result of which the veil between different dimensions was broken and streams of monsters from other worlds poured into the complex, with which the main character, the humble physicist Gordon Freeman, has to fight. The Medium, a surreal and innovative horror game from the Bloober Team studio, which gave players a lot of great projects in the horror genre. This time, the developers offer players to get used to the role of a psychic who arrived in an abandoned resort town in order to uncover a terrible secret with the help of his supernatural abilities, which has remained unsolved for many years. Max Payne, the first part of the legendary detective action game, endowed with a great neo-noir atmosphere. In addition to an indescribable plot, the game boasts one of the best plots among all third-person shooter games and excellent gameplay, which is based on dynamic shootouts with riffs and the ability to slow down time. BioShock, one of the best dystopian shooters on PC, set in an amazing underwater city. Initially, this underwater city was supposed to be the best place on Earth, access to which is open only to the best and most worthy representatives of humanity. But something went wrong, and instead of paradise on Earth, Rapture, as the city is called, became a real nightmare, an abandoned and unsightly place filled with drug addicts and psychopaths who attack anyone who meets them on the way. Inside, atmospheric platformer from independent developers, offering to take part in the adventures of a little boy trying to survive in a dystopian totalitarian world and reach his mysterious goal. An unexpected stealth and physics puzzle game that feeds straight through the gameplay and has an unexpected ending. The atmosphere of this independent project is so powerful that it overshadows even many much more expensive and well-known AAA games. Mafia, an open-world crime action game that captures the life of American gangsters in the 30s of the last century better than any other video game in the world. The protagonist is an ordinary city taxi driver, randomly drawn into a Mafia showdown, after which he joined a respectable Mafia family and managed to achieve an influential position within it. Journey, an atmospheric game about a semi-mystical and incomprehensible journey through the sandy desert, which, along with a mysterious floating figure, awaits the player. Going to an unknown goal together with the main character, the player will be able to enjoy the powerful atmosphere of an unknown ancient world that keeps the secrets of bygone times and disappeared civilizations. The game is fully Russified and has a network co-op. Journey is incredibly beautiful, has meditative gameplay, and also pleases with its enchanting sounds and music, for which it was even nominated for the prestigious Grammy Music Award. Pathologic, a dark quest with elements of other genres. The game turned out to be incredibly atmospheric and interesting, but at the same time also overly complex, sometimes incomprehensible. All this made Pathologic one of the most underrated games of its time. Fortunately, later the players realized how a masterpiece and unique game it was, including in terms of atmosphere. And in 2019, the developers themselves released an extended and very high-quality remake of their legendary game called Pathologic 2. Ori and the Blind Forest, a 2D atmospheric platformer and action game about the adventures of a funny forest spirit. Games in which all the elements were a success. It is very beautifully drawn, reminiscent of an animated interactive cartoon, has a memorable musical accompaniment and a touching story. It is very interesting and comfortable to play, especially when using a gamepad. Recommended for all lovers of classic platform games and simply charming and unique games with a fabulous atmosphere. Firework, an Asian 2D horror film with depressing visuals that create a depressing atmosphere woven from hopelessness and despair. The plot of the game is based on an accident, a fire at a funeral after a massacre. This circumstance forces the local police to reopen the already closed investigation of a terrible crime. The protagonist of Firework is a young policeman who is also involved in the investigation and gradually discovers many terrible secrets related to the past of the victims. The game has a lot of puzzles and a lot of horror, and all this is implemented in an Oriental style. Darkest Dungeon, one of the most complex and atmospheric turn-based strategy games with an RPG element. In addition, it is also one of the most innovative, spawning a huge number of imitator games. The player controls a squad of mercenaries exploring the dungeons beneath the cursed mansion. These places are so disastrous and terrible that they literally reward reckless seekers of profit and glory with phobias and mental illness. And the most sensitive ones are even able to send to the other world from a broken heart or completely drive them crazy, forcing them to run away from the battlefield or attack their comrades in the squad. Dead by Daylight, a game for those who love the atmosphere of the old horror films, which are classics of the slasher subgenre. In essence, this is an interactive horror game with network asymmetric mechanics, where creepy maniacs from all sorts of famous games and films are hunting for four frightened survivors. One of the most popular games of its kind, which is played by millions of players. Stranding, a game that has strange and dull gameplay, offset by an unusual atmosphere, based on absolute post-apocalypse and strange science fiction, forced into a more or less cohesive and coherent story concept by the Japanese Hideo Kojima. After being kicked out of Konami, he has no choice but to draw attention to himself by claiming that he is working on his own unique game that has no analogs. As a result, he turned out to be a banal and boring simulator of walking along the volcanic expanses, but with a very decent atmosphere, riddled with loneliness and sadness. A game for those who love contemplative and leisurely video games. If your favorite game is not included in this list, write in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe our channel, watch our other videos, press like, turn on notifications, and you will always be aware of what to play today.